Have you ever thought about what actually happens to all the waste that is collected in these porta potties? Like when you go to festivals and you see them at on the side of the road or at construction sites and big door events. You ever think about like what happens with the waste? Maybe you haven't. I'm just like, that's
I
this is me going down a rabbit hole because I be thinking about some things. So,
sometimes.
and especially with some of the information that's been coming off on social medias. Because the idea is that, a lot of times in when we talk about human waste, let's
Mhm,
talk about piss, pee, urine,
mhm.
it can actually be processed and broken down into these components that are used in different industries or the scientific setting. So yes,
Ooh.
idea that your pee pee can be used in things like pharmaceuticals. So it had me thinking, you remember you've heard that saying, don't have a pot to piss in,
Yes.
or window to
Or
throw it
window
out.
rolled out of? That's like an
That
an
actually came yeah, so that saying actually came from ancient times where people would basically collect their urine in these pots or containers, and they would reuse it or sell it because your pee contained ammonia, and that was really valuable during those times, so they would use it to make soap and cleaning products. So the idea is, like, if you didn't have a pot to piss in, and i.e. be able to reuse it or sell it, you was really, really poor. But that's where the idea came from. Scientists and companies have, they figured this out very, very long time ago that you can extract these compounds out of your biological waste. So urine, for example, it contains urea. And, I was thinking like as many times as I've gone to what's the store that I say I cannot stand? I get what is it called? Like a TJ Maxx. But a
Mhm,
lot of times you'll see like they'll have products like lotions and it'll
mhm.
be like the urea. And
Mm,
it doesn't necessarily say it comes from a cow, but you're like, well, where does that come from?
mm.
So urea is extracted from urine and it's used in skincare products and fertilizers and some of our medical products. So here's what my research found. There's a company in Michigan
Mhm.
and it has designed this filter that collects urine proteins. And then so they take this filter and they install it in porta potties, men's porta potties in the urinals, which these urinals are owned by Porta John. And you see a Porta John on the side of the road all the
Yeah,
time,
all
right?
the time.
Porta John is a subsidiary of Enzymes of America. So basically, this company markets its urine product or collector called urokinase. Well, no, so this company markets their product to companies like Porta John and Porta Potty to install it because the idea is that it's supposed to kind of take away that urine that old pee smell.
Mhm.
But at the same time, it's collecting urokinase, which is an enzyme that supposedly dissolves blood clots and treats victims of heart attacks.
Oh,
So basically, the flow of all of this urine from porta johns all over the country, which, privately owned, but it's used to collect this urokinase or turn the pee into urokinase, which is used to help with unclogging coronary arteries. Isn't that crazy?
wow. So you don't have to give your permission. Clearly, this is something where it's like you needed to put it somewhere
Oh.
anyway. So
Yeah, so going further down the rabbit hole, there's a company called Aris Serono Group, and they produce a drug called Pergonal. And Pergonal is collected from urine samples of postmenopausal women volunteers in Italy, Spain, Brazil, and Argentina. So they basically take this urine and then they isolate the ovulation enhancing hormone within it. So they take the pee from this group of women and they isolate the a certain hormone out of it. Then they sell it to people pay up to $1,400 a month for this urine extract because it's known to treat for infertility in women.
mm.
This company makes I got $855 million in sales. That was back in 1992. And they're doing this from it's free source. They just taking a pee. What you
I
gotta say?
mean, so I'm hearing you and I'm wow. So I'm like, okay, that makes sense because basically you urine and that's you can take your pregnancy test via the urine, right? And that's where your hormone, yeah, your nay if you're pregnant. So therefore, if they're able to isolate the hormone, is that what you're saying? They isolate this hormone and they're able to help women who are, did you say premenopausal?
No. So they're able to treat women's infertility. So
Infertility,
they
I didn't mean to say
basically
premenopause,
they
infertility.
recycle this, they take this pee, they resource it or recycle it, and then they sell it on the market to women looking to
So,
get
it's
pregnant.
it's another fertility drug, like, it's cleaner
Yeah, but the
another
idea
cleaner
of where
fertility?
hmm?
It's
It's a
I'm just
no,
saying,
it's
like,
I wouldn't say I
to
mean, and
enhance
that's the question,
fertility?
is it cleaner? No, I don't
I'm just
this is
thinking,
where I'm getting into I don't know. This is bringing up some interesting questions to me. So, okay,
let's
so let me just talk about, the idea of which we're talking about is recycling biological materials. So basically turning waste into something usable. So we know that
okay,
this is what we're
compost.
talking
We're
about.
composting here.
But what I've been thinking yeah, okay, but what I've been thinking about is, how much of what we use every day comes from places that we don't expect.
Mhm.
So, I gave, for example, the urea, and I never really thought about it, but, some of the skincare products and, especially when it says wrinkle free, wrinkle free, you get a wrinkle free appearance or on your,
Mhm.
in your skincare product. And if it contains urea. And I always thought that it was coming from
An animal?
I don't know why I thought it was coming from cows because 'cause they'll even have a cow on the on sometimes they'll have a cow
O
on
on the
the
product?
packaging, but
I know
it's
what you're
not
talking about.
necessarily that that's where it's
Right,
coming from, the
'cause
pea is coming from. Okay, that's one thing. And then, I thought if there was a way to make money by collecting urine, then people wouldn't be spending so much money on ways to get rid of it. So, our plumbing supplies, our bathroom renovations, all of these things that we do to carry out or get out the waste because we have been taught or we don't know that there is a commodity
I
for
don't know.
this waste. So is there a way to collect it and a way at the same time to for the common folk to benefit from it, not from
Right.
these
Uh,
companies that have found a way
what kind of
to
lab do
collect
I
it and
need?
make money. Hmm?
What kind of lab do I need to isolate the
Well,
hormone
right,
needed?
because can you imagine, like,
I'm a
if
woman, so
what kinda kit do you need? What do I need to be able to sell? It's kinda like recycling, they got us in this
yeah.
idea of recycling,
What
oh, 5 cent, it doesn't really make it's not nobody's gonna be making millionaires, but there's a whole business that there's
$1,400?
a whole market, billions of dollars that is being made because,
You're
the common
reusing
folk have
urine.
got into recycling, we're which is I'm not taking away from that, I'm just saying. So, let's translate that to this. I'm talking about pee for now. So, then there's human waste. So, it is alleged and no, I think I'm not even gonna say it's alleged because there's numbers that prove it that millions of acres of just the US farmland contain PFAs or which is basically forever chemicals. So, these are things that don't break down. So, like for example, the plastic packaging around your food that
Mhm,
stuff can be around for ages after we're all long
mhm,
gone. That stuff will
mhm,
still be around.
mhm,
The Teflon in our pots and our pans, the stuff does not erode. It's not biodegradable. It doesn't go back to
mhm,
the earth. And the thing is
mhm.
that these forever chemicals increase the risk of certain cancers, especially testicular cancer. You hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Kidney cancer, disrupt the hormones. We've heard about that with
Mhm,
thyroid issues,
mhm,
immune system suppression, fertility issues, pregnancy
mhm,
complications, developmental effects in children. All of these things from these forever chemicals, which come from the human waste. And
mhm.
on top of that, then we talk about microplastics.
Woo!
That's been a buzzword. We've heard about it a lot, but
Mhm.
you think about it. Most of our life is centers around plastic.
You ain't
I
know
mean, it does. We eat off of it, we sleep on it, we breathe it, we put it in our
a
mouths,
lot
we
of
put it
water,
in our hair,
Ziploc
all
bags.
everything. We breathe it in.
Mhm,
It's all over. So the idea is that these biosolids or human waste is
mhm,
used as fertilizer. So basically these toxic chemicals and the metals, they
mhm.
get into the land because we in the United States here, we have this idea of sewage to sludge. So
Sewage
basically
system.
taking sewage and
Mhm.
processing it to turn into this sludge that can be used as fertilizer.
Ooh, I
I
threw
mean,
up a
we
little
know
bit.
this. Yeah, and how many times I've heard people say, you can tell the difference when you maybe pass by a farm or you pass by, a plot of land
Huh?
where you could tell the difference between manure, horse
Uh-huh.
manure, cow manure, and human waste.
Oh,
The
yeah.
smell is very, very different.
Yes.
So the idea is that it is being used, human waste is being used to, um, fertilize the
Mm.
land,